Hey, established kids, really exciting to be here again with you today. I am so glad that we get to celebrate mothers today. It's Mother's Day. I hope you've spoiled your mum this morning. Maybe you made her some breakfast in bed or some eggs on toast. I really hope that you spoiled her with presents and lots of kisses and cuddles. Our mums are very special to us and we love having mums as a part of our church. Hopefully, you've been able to spend some time with her and celebrate together as a family. Today, we get to read a really special story that's one of our stories in the Tales That Tell Truth collection. It's this story, Jesus and the Lion's Den. You might think that sounds a little bit funny and like they've got the name of the character wrong, but you'll see that it's a true story about how Daniel points us to Jesus. It's written by Alison and it's illustrated by Catalina Echeverri, like the rest of our Tales That Tell Truth in this series. Let's have a read. Oh, as Daniel and the King. Did you know that the oldest stories in the Bible are a bit like puzzles? If you look very carefully, you'll see that maybe you can spot some Jesus moments. These are moments when someone in the story is a little bit like Jesus. So, this book is about the really exciting story of Daniel. But what makes it even more exciting is that you can spot Jesus moments in it. There are lots of lions in this story, but every time you see this special lion, he is a very special looking lion, isn't he? You can know that it's a clue about a Jesus moment there too. Are you ready to start the story? Let's begin. Do you have any habits? I wonder if you have any like this. Maybe you sing in the bath, or twiddle your thumbs, or stick your finger up your nose. Yuck. This is a story about Daniel and his habit. It was a great habit, but it was a habit that got him into a lot of trouble. Oh no, I wonder what that habit could be. Daniel knew God, the real king. He knew that God, the king of everyone, was everywhere. Daniel loved God very much. And so 3 times a day, Daniel knelt down on his window and prayed. Prayer is talking to God. We can talk to him anywhere, anytime, about anything. What a wonderful habit. How could that get anyone into trouble? I wonder why Daniel was in trouble for praying. Daniel worked for Darius, the super powerful king of Babylon. Daniel was so good at his job that the king wanted him to run the whole kingdom. But the other people who worked for King Darius didn't like Daniel. And they didn't like that he prayed to God. So they decided to get Daniel into trouble with the king. They really don't look very happy there, do they? There was just one problem with their plan. Daniel had done nothing wrong. Nothing. But then they thought of something. They could use Daniel's habit to get him into trouble. I wonder how they're going to do that. Daniel's enemies got King Darius to make a new law. It said that for 30 days, no one was allowed to pray to anyone except the king. And if anyone broke the law, they would be thrown into a den full of huge, scary lions. Oh, I wonder if you can see those huge, scary lions in the picture there. I can see another lion that maybe is pointing us to a clue about Jesus. Oh no, What would Daniel do? If he obeyed the king of Babylon, he would stay safe. But if he obeyed God, the real king of everyone and everywhere, he would keep praying. And that meant Daniel would be lion food. Safety or lion food? Which would Daniel choose? Daniel's enemies crept up to his house and looked up at his window. Daniel was praying. They're being very sneaky in the bushes there, aren't they? They'd caught him. The plan had worked, so they rushed back and told the king. Daniel was about to become lion food. Here's another clue pointing us to Jesus. King Darius tried and tried all day to find a way to save Daniel. But he couldn't. Even the king wasn't able to change the law. Goodness, he looks very worried, doesn't he? So when the sun went down, Daniel was taken to the den of huge, hungry lions and thrown in. I hope your God can save you, said the king. And there are the lions. I wonder how Daniel must be feeling. A big stone was rolled across the mouth of the den, and everyone went to bed. Everyone except the king. He couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned and tossed and turned all night long. Look at his worried face in bed. In the morning, he rushed back to the den. Daniel, has your God been able to save you from the lions? Asked the king. And then he listened. What do you think he heard? A voice came from the den. Yes, king, I am not hurt. God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. God saved me because I had done nothing wrong. Nothing. Those lions looked pretty afraid. Daniel was lifted out of the den, and there wasn't even a scratch on him. God really must have closed those lions' mouths, mustn't he? Daniel had trusted God, and God had saved him. Then, because King Darius was such an important king, he wrote to all the people in all the countries in all the world, and he said, Daniel's God is the living God. He is the real king of everyone and everywhere, now and forever. He saves his people. And if you look really closely in the background, you can see the king's advisors being taken to be thrown in the lion's den themselves. The end. Oh, wait, this is not the end at all. It's time to spot some Jesus moments. Look back at the pictures in this book. There were lots of lions in the story. But I wonder, did we spot the special lion? He appears every time there's a Jesus moment. Did you spot this lion hanging around? Let's see. There he is, where Daniel's praying. Maybe back to, oh, here's another one. Let me see. Back here on the king's throne. I wonder. Each Jesus moment is a moment when Daniel is a little like Jesus, the Son of God. I wonder if we can find all four. Here's what they mean. Daniel's enemies wanted to get rid of him. Oh, there they are. So they tried to get him into trouble. In the same way, That's what Jesus' enemies did to him too. Can you see? They're plotting to kill Jesus. But in his job, Daniel had done nothing wrong. Nothing. His enemies had to invent a new law to get Daniel into trouble. There they are, plotting and scheming and making the king sign their decree. That's another moment there. In his whole life, Jesus had done nothing wrong. Nothing. And so his enemies had to tell lies about him to get him into trouble. When Daniel heard about his enemy's plan, he knew he was going to be arrested and thrown to the lions. And so what did he do? Daniel prayed. When Jesus knew he was going to be arrested and killed on the cross, what did he do? He prayed too. Isn't it amazing? All these similarities. Jesus crying out to God just like Daniel did. Did Daniel die in the den of lions? No. The lions were very hungry, and Daniel was as good as dead. But God, the real king of everyone and everywhere, brought Daniel out of the den. Did Jesus die on the cross? Yes. 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 Jesus really was dead. But then God brought his son out of death. And do you know something amazing? God promises to bring all of his son's friends, that's you and me, out of death and into life with him too. Can God really do that? Yes, he can. He's done it before. And look, there's Mary holding Jesus close because she's so glad that he is alive again. So one day, all of Jesus' friends will live with him forever and ever. And for now, we can enjoy the same habit that Daniel did. We can talk to the real king of everyone and everywhere, every day. And isn't this a lovely picture of this family enjoying that same habit that Daniel did and that Jesus did, and spending time with God, talking to him in prayer together? Isn't that an amazing story? It's one of the tales that tell truth, and that's because we can find the story of Daniel and the lion's den, the huge hungry lions, in Daniel chapter 6 in the Old Testament. That's the first half of the Bible, the stories that come before Jesus. And it's a true story set in the time of King Darius, who was the king of the Persian Empire from about 522 BC to 486 BC. And if you're an older primary kid, maybe you can look up King Darius and see what you can find about him in some history books or on the internet. The Old Testament tells us about events that happened long before Jesus was born. And yet the whole Bible is about Jesus. Isn't that amazing? It's always God's good plan. It was always God's good plan to send his son to live on earth and to die for our sins, and then to rise to life again. And God gave his people lots of clues about how this would happen. When we read Old Testament stories, we can look out for those clues. There are Jesus moments where someone in the story is a little bit like Jesus or points us to him. Here are a few more Old Testament stories that you might like to have a look up and read to see how someone in the story is a little bit like Jesus. There's Jonah and the big fish. That's in Jonah chapter 1, verse 17 to chapter 2, verse 10. David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. Abraham and Isaac in Genesis 22. And Moses and the manna in the desert in Exodus 16. I'll post them in the comments below. It's pretty cool to see how those people point us to Jesus even hundreds of years before he was born. It shows us that Jesus was always a part of God's big plan. It's really, really cool to see that God doesn't make mistakes, that God doesn't change his mind. But Jesus was a part of his great rescue plan from the very beginning. We're going to have a bit more of a think about this as we do our activities today. If you're one of the primary kids, don't forget to jump onto our after church Zoom, and there'll be some leaders there who'd love to chat to you about what you've found. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week. See you later.